President Trump's signature economic policy is taking center stage at the Supreme Court today.
The future of his tariffs hangs in the balance. Justices heard oral arguments on the case today. At issue is a legal question around the limits of executive power. The court is deciding whether the president has the authority to impose sweeping tariffs on imports under a law that's meant to apply to national emergencies.
8 small businesses sued the Trump administration, arguing these tariffs hurt their bottom line. The plaintiffs include a wine and spirits importer, a sport fishing retailer, and a cycling apparel outfitter. Let's bring in NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung and NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris. So, Misty, I want to start with you and the question essentially at the heart of this case, which is, are tariffs an economic tool or a tool used for emergencies and foreign threats? Walk us through what we heard today, specifically from the justices and lawyers.
So I thought was really interesting is a lot of what this case was about is whether or not there was actually an emergency and who gets to decide. Is it the president? Is there oversight to that? Can the courts come in and question it? Can the legislature come in and question it? And we never really got to that question. So this was really focused on the plain text of the statute. What does it say? It doesn't say tariffs, but is there language that encompasses tariffs and gives the president that power? If it's interpreted that way, does it violate the non-delegation clause of the Constitution, which says Congress can't give its power away to other branches of government? And then lastly, this major questions doctrine that if Congress wanted it to say tariffs, they would have, and they didn't because it does not say that in the plain language of the statute. Those are the heart of the legal arguments that we heard the justices really focus on.
And Brian, let me go to you. So Wall Street, the markets all around the world are watching this case, right? Can you give us kind of like the bird's eye view from 30,000 feet of what is really happening with tariffs and the economy?
Yeah, this is one of those funny situations where you have Wall Street traders going on OYES or going on SCOTUSblog.com to figure out what happens here, because there has been a substantial economic and Wall Street impact on a number of companies as a result of these tariffs. As we know, it's American companies that pay the cost of these tariffs because they're the ones that are importing them at these higher levies. So $174 billion, that is the estimated tariff revenue since these policies have been put into effect. Not all of it are the tariffs that are being litigated in the Supreme Court today, but a lot of them are. But again, those are costs that businesses have been grappling with. In many cases, they've been choosing to take it on the chin. In other cases, they've been passing those costs on to customers. But that's what hangs in the balance of this Supreme Court decision. So,
Misty, what are, to the point of a decision, right, coming, what are the potential outcomes and when could we see a ruling?
Well, I think what's interesting is a lot of the amici briefs, which are from interested parties, which would normally align with the conservative view, were arguing against these tariffs. They were actually in favor of the challengers. So there's a lot of economic consequences when it comes to this ruling. And look, what this means is going to be based on the legal theory that underlies the decision. So if the challengers are successful, then the question is why? Is that an expansion of executive authority, or is that because these tariffs are improper for other reasons?
And not a lot of tea leaves today, like to read to know which way the court's leaning?
You know, if I have to predict right now, I think the challengers are going to be successful. I think Gorsuch was leaning towards the challengers right at the very end of the argument, where he had been really skeptical of the administration's argument, but it also really pushed the challengers as well. He said taxes are different. When it goes into the pocket of the American people, that's different. And a central issue is, are these tariffs really taxes, which would fall under congressional authority?
And then, Brian, big picture, quickly, what does this mean for the American people, regardless of where it falls?
And by the way, it seems like Wall Street did get the message on that. They saw some of those conservative commentary as a reason for maybe why the Supreme Court at some point might strike down the authority for the president to impose these tariffs. But again, this is not the end of the road there. This doesn't cover every single tariff. And I want to point out, there has already been chatter about the administration turning to other avenues, like a 1974 law that would cap tariffs at 15% for 150 days. They could do that if these if tariffs get struck down.
All right, more to come. Brian Chung, Misty Maris, thanks both.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.